It's a
We have
50-50
guests.
chance.
I call the Committee on Ordinances, Elections, Legislative Matters to order at 7 p.m. So I have two motions to bring forward tonight from the docket of January 3rd, 2017. I entertain a motion to approve the Attleboro Retirement Board's request that the Municipal Council accept Section 19 of Chapter 188 of the Acts of 2010, which would increase the COLA, cost of living adjustment base for retirees, from the first 12,000 to the first 13,000.
Second.
Thank you, Council Denley, Acting President Denley. Note, the board at its regular meeting held on May 25th, 2016, voted 3-2 with James Castro, Deborah Gould voting nay to accept this section. So this is pretty pretty self-explanatory motion on the surface of what we're looking to do today. But what I wanted to do is invite Gary Sagar, who is the chair of the retirement board, to come up, talk a little bit about really what the discussion was back in May, and just kind of enlighten us more, a little bit more in terms of what's going on, because there are some, can be a little cumbersome looking at it on the surface, so.
Okay. I also have two of my colleagues here. I'd like to invite them to join me too, if I may. Jim?
So we'll be bringing Jim Castro and City Auditor Deb Gould up as well.
As you noted, Mr. Chairman, first of all, Gary Sagar, Chairman of the Board. As you noted, it was a 3-2 vote to bring this forward. I am in the majority. My two colleagues on either side of me are in the minority. But unlike Washington, we can disagree and work together and still like each other. So that's important to do. Just a little brief history, if I may, on the cost of living adjustments for retirees. Up until 1998, the state, 1997, the state bore the cost, and it was arbitrary if they wanted to award an increase or not. They abandoned that role and they turned it over to the local retirement systems. And so 20 years ago, back in 1997, 1998, the state did establish the final COLA at a $12,000 figure. And from that point forward, the city adopted the permissive legislation which allowed us to pay a cost of living adjustment based on the first $12,000. In 2011, Chapter 176 of the Acts of 2011 increased the amount of the COLA from $12,000 base to $13,000 base for all state employees and for all teachers. Now, no municipality in the Commonwealth contributes a penny to any of the teachers' retirements. It's all state funded. So since 2012, the COLA has been at $13,000 for all the Attleboro teachers, as all the teachers throughout the Commonwealth. So by raising the base for the remainder of the employees in the city, it would create parity. Where all the teachers belong to the teachers' retirement system, there are quite a few employees, in addition to teachers in the school system, that are members of our system. That would be all the ILAs, the clerks, the secretaries, maintenance people, and so forth. As of the 31st of January, we had 429 retirees on our payroll. If this increase to $13,000 is approved, it would affect 302 of them, 245 city side employees, and 57 school employees. This legislation that allows the increase from 12 to 13,000 has been around for a few years, as I previously stated, and we are really behind in comparison to a lot of the other communities. Just by comparison, our neighboring town in North Attleboro has a $14,000 base, where we're at the 12. All of the county employees that, all the members of the county system, which would be our neighboring towns of Seacon, Norton, and Rehoboth, are all at an $18,000 base. The teachers, as I mentioned before, are at $13,000, and the neighboring town, the closest city to us, would be Taunton, is at $15,000. By raising the base from $12,000 to $13,000, it would increase those people that would qualify for it a maximum of $30 a year. And it's the first raise that they've had in 20 years. So we feel that the time is right to do it. As part of our presentation, while we planned for this, we wanted to be sure that we could provide to the city the cost factor, which I'm sure would be a question that would be asked anyways. Every 2 years, the retirement system is required to do an actuarial evaluation of our system, and at the time when we did it, for the value of the system as of 1/1/2016, They did an additional study, and they came up with the figure, it's $107,000 going forward. If it was to be accepted, and we asked that be accepted and would become effective July 1st in the next fiscal year budget. So that's a brief overview, Mr. Chairman. I'll be more than happy to provide any additional information you may need. I believe everybody got a copy of the letter of support that we, from the president of the retired employees in Massachusetts, Frank Valeri. And there's been other documents that have been circulated from myself and from Mr. Castro. If there's any other information, I'd be more than happy to share with you or answer any of your questions.
I want to open it up. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Sagar? Council Hall?
Thank you. So you said the current number is 429 at 12K?
429 employees,
Right.
retirees.
That are considered, as you keep it at 12K, how many would it be if you move it up to 13K?
The 302 would be effective.
Okay, and out of the 302, how many leaving? In other words, how many left over? So how many of those 302 are city side, did you say again? I'm sorry.
Well, just to be clear, there's 429 total retirees that receive a pension allowance. Some of them do not receive the $12,000 figure, so they would not qualify for this increase. But there's 302 that do. 245 are on the city side and 57 are on the school for the 302, so that would leave out 129. My math,
Okay.
127, I'm sorry.
Okay, and explain to me about, and I know we talked a little about the 3%. So that 3%, tell me again, you get that every year, is that correct?
We can vote up to 3%.
So do you, and it sounds to me like you have been getting 3% every year, is that correct?
That is correct.
So every year you get 3% increase regardless?
3% of the first 12,000.
Okay, that's it, thank you.
So, just from a basic standpoint, so I can wrap my arms around it, what's the thought process behind, and I know it's a state law, but wouldn't it make more sense for the 127 to be getting that $30 increase versus those who are already getting a 3% increase?
The COLAs, the history of the COLAs,
Just to clarify, so every retiree gets a 3% increase. The 127 are people that aren't getting $12,000 a year, so they're not getting the maximum, so they're not going to get
Okay.
it on the additional
right.
thousand.
All right,
So if they're
thank you
getting
for
a
clarification.
$10,000 allowance, they would get 300.
Okay,
That would be-
thank you. Council Cooper?
Thank you. So my question isn't particularly to Mr. Sagar, but I would like to hear from two sort of trusted advisors to this council as to why they voted
Well,
no.
we'll get to that.
Okay.
That's certainly why I asked both of them to come down tonight.
Okay.
And we will certainly get to that, but I just want to make sure that while we have Mr. Sagar here, if there's any other questions.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so,
Can I just clarify one thing?
Yeah, of
that
course.
Gary said, only because I found this out late this afternoon relative to the potential date of impact. Gary just said that the $107,000 would be needed on 7/1/2017, which would be the FY16 budget. So just to receive clarification from PERAC to find out if we would be required to increase our funding schedule effective fiscal 18 if this were to pass. PERAC's actuary, Jim Lomenzo, told me that we wouldn't have to do the increase in 18. They would like to see the increase take effect on the required appropriation to the retirement system in fiscal 19. But the retirement system has an actuarial funding schedule that has been approved right now, and PERAC would not mandate, so to speak, that we amend that schedule for fiscal 2018. I have the numbers for that 107, and I'll show you what that would look like, but just for a point of reference, that of course presumes that the retirement system itself, if this matter was voted in the affirmative, the retirement system would still have to, if the retirement system were to vote for the new schedule, then the $107,000 would have to be in effect July 1st, 2017. If the retirement system said, we'll wait and not mandate that schedule, until 19, we wouldn't have an increase. Potentially, we could, not that it would necessarily be advantageous overall, but just for discussion purposes and to provide all the information I have to everybody, it could be as late as impact the 2020 fiscal budget, just so that you're aware of that, okay? And I'll share some of the numbers of what I thought the absolute impact immediate was with you on my spreadsheet, so that you know what the funding is and stuff, and the ratio between the city and school. But that's something I found out late this afternoon from Jim Lomenzo, and I wanted to make sure to clarify and just...
And for everybody's information, PERAC is a abbreviation for the Public Employee Retirement Administration Commission, who is our state oversight agency, and we can't do anything without their blessing, basically.
Okay, very good. Thank you for that information, Deb. All right, any other questions for Mr. Sagar at this point? Okay, Deb and Jim, I'd love to hear,
Jim, go first.
always the gentleman, Mr. Castro.
So I'd like to pass out, this is a spreadsheet that I did today, just so that people would have an idea of what, if the actuarial funding schedule, thank you. This was with the information, and then I wanted to contact Parrot to say, hey, you know, would this have to affect the 18 budget and the 19 budget? I found out that we wouldn't necessarily have to affect those budgets, but regardless, there's a cost associated with this. And you heard my colleague say that it's $30 per retiree potentially between the $12,000 and the $13,000, which we know equates to about $2.50 per month before taxes. Retirees only pay federal tax. They don't pay state tax. That being said, overall to the system, it's $107,000 potentially that we would need, right? And where does that $107,000, it would break down, if you look at the lower half of your spreadsheet, assuming that we went with the funding schedule and we had to implement the funding schedule, that would have been broken up as $75,990 for an increased cost to the general fund budget, $21,000 more to the school budget. The water enterprise fund would have to absorb an additional $3,600. The wastewater, a little over $4,500. The housing authority, just for everybody's information, is a component unit of the system. So the housing authority would absorb additional costs, as would the Attleboro redevelopment authority. There are 3 component units to the city's retirement system. So that's how that would break down. I think from the perspective of, if there was an endless pile of money in the city, I would certainly have been a yes vote. I mean, it's a population that doesn't necessarily have additional income opportunities. They're not getting raises and stuff like that. The fact of the matter is that when we started this discussion last year, we were laying off people both in the city side of government and the school side of government. And if you don't have additional money coming into the city, something else has to go. So it's either going to be another active employee. In order to come up with $107,000 to fund something, it has to come from someplace. There's not a lot in the budget to cut. So my no vote isn't because I don't think it's worthy. It certainly is. It's just a matter of funding priorities, and I couldn't see, as a member of the system, asking this legislative body and the administration to come up with money for this as opposed to something else that they see that they need. To your point that you had earlier, yeah, if there was additional money, I worry about the people whose pension isn't at least $12,000 a year. And to my knowledge, there's no remedy for that. There's nothing that we can give. In some instances, it may be because those individuals were not long-serving members of the city and they only worked for a short period of time and only are entitled to a small pension. In other cases, it potentially is because they retired some years ago and their salaries weren't very large and they didn't get it. I don't have the statistical data on who makes up what population, but I worry a great deal about those people. Another thing from my perspective when I'm sitting there on the board making these votes is the city of Attleboro contributes 75% of the health insurance premium for retired employees. We contribute 50% for surviving spouses. That's a substantial benefit when you compare to a lot of people in the private sector who don't have that type of benefit. They're retired from private industry, they may not have that. The city for the last there's no increase to the people participating in the 65 and older plan, the primary plan in the city, the MedX plan for January 1st, 2017. The rate is the same as it was last year. For those retirees who are younger than 65 and are not on the Medicare plans, the July 1st, 2016, which is the fiscal 2017 rate, it was actually a 0.4% decrease in the premium plan. If you look historically back, certainly the cost of medical insurance continues to go up, but on January 1st, 2014, the city began participating in a PDP plan. That plan substantially reduced the cost of our health insurance plan, and our retirees received a 25% cost savings in that plan as well. So, you know, to me, it's more than just the $30 a month. I tried to look at sort of the overall picture of the city, and, you know, what I have kind of a broad base of knowledge, and that's why it was the no vote. But certainly, if we had lots of money, I would be one of the people voting in the affirmative. I just happen not to. The board vote, though, was 3-2, and it was to come before you, so.
Okay. So when we look at that insurance, I think that's an important piece to look at. So how does that compare to other communities, surrounding communities?
I honestly didn't even do a comparison to other
Okay.
communities. I focused on just how much does it cost us here. And because you know what? We can't do 18%. What was it, 18,000 or 15,000 in Taunton? I mean,
Yeah.
we don't have $300,000 or $321,000 to do a $3,000 bump this year. You know what I mean? So, well, I think information is helpful when you do comparative analysis to other communities and stuff like that. Sometimes I just kind of focus on the realities of what it is right here in front of me and how much money does it mean to a particular budget. If the cost of living adjustment goes from 12,000 to 13,000, and we do, say, push it off, right? We don't change the funding schedule. There is a cost of this overall. At the end of the day, somebody's paying for it. If our return on investments is greater than what we have in the actuarial assumed study, 2 years out, the adjustment helps, and, you know, it will affect what we have to fund in the future. But, you know, the days of, you know, huge returns haven't happened in a long time. Our year-to-date rate of return last year was 7.4%. That's our preliminary number from our consultant. Our actuary that covered that time frame, it had an 8% return. This year, on the new funding schedule, our actuarial assumed rate of return is 7.875%. If we are at 7.4, we're below that. You know what I mean? So to your point, Councilor Hall, the 3% cost of living is assumed when the funding schedule is developed. So that's already in there, which is why Chairman Saga asked that we have another study done to say, hey, how much would it actually cost? You know, this is the 107,000 and the 111,000 in year number 2 gives you that sense. The overall addition to the funding schedule is in excess of just over $1 million when they look at what it did to the overall funding schedule. And right now, from our 2014 valuation to the 2016 valuation, we went from fully funding in 2034 to 2037 with a little bit in 2038. So we added 3 years to the funding schedule. Those are big numbers to consider. So that's fundamentally why I voted the way I did.
Now, that 107, get you one quick second here. That 107,000, is that a one-time expense, or is this now added to the budget every year going forward?
It becomes part of your new base. It basically is an expense forever. So that 107, if you look at the estimated increase in the spreadsheet that I provided, that number, based on the current study, is 111,444 in fiscal 19. Again, assuming that these were the schedules that were in play, and that's not necessarily the way it would happen, depending on how things were voted.
Yep.
But the 107 is the base, because you have to presume that in the next year, you're compounding on the 3%.
Sure.
And some of the people that weren't at the 12,000, once they get this year's COLA, would be in the next year's COLA. Just when Gary did mention how the COLA was originally covered by part of the Commonwealth. We, the system, receives about $164,000 a year in reimbursement for the COLA from the Commonwealth, for COLAs that were instituted prior to that becoming the responsibility of the system. The other thing that I thought, because I kind of looked at a lot of different things for, because I have no idea what you guys will ask, right? So one of the other things that I thought was pretty interesting is the total benefits in calendar year 2016 were $11,402,597. That was the total pension payments. Of that, approximately $9,770,779 was from the system. The difference would have been the annuity portion, basically what people contributed. You know what I mean? So obviously some of the 9.7 was money that was from contribution, some of it was from investment, rate of return, that kind of stuff, interest. But the other piece of it is, of the $11.4 million, the life-to-date COLA is $1.5 million of that, with the $164,000 being reimbursed. So the people who are receiving benefits, the total life-to-date COLA increases on the 11.4 is $1.5 million and change.
If we're talking about returns, rate of returns,
Yep.
from the 2015 PERAC report, from 1985 to 2015, our annualized return was 8.7%. That's over 30 years. I've been at this job a long time, and we have many times over the years, when the city's been in trouble, cash flow, we've reduced the appropriation while not jeopardizing the system, but took less than what we should have had. Had we had all the monies that should have gone to the system based on the experts, our funding ratio would be much less, and we'd be much further funded. So in essence, you can't have it both ways. Where we've been a great partner with the city, and even, can remember there was one year, and the year escapes me, where Mayor Robbins mentioned us in her in the budget message. Everything costs money. I mean, it's an expense. I think that the retirees haven't seen an increase in their base in over 20 years. I think it's well timed that we did it. There's a lot of other facts and figures we could throw out there, but I just would like to keep the discussion as basic as possible, if that's even possible, so that we don't have a lot of different information out there.
Sure, no, I understand. Anything we can do to streamline and muddy the water, always welcome. Council Blair?
I just, Deb, when you said the city contributes to the insurance, the health insurance, what was it they contributed to retirees?
The percentage is 75%
75
for a retiree.
and 50 for survivors?
Surviving spouses, so, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I just didn't quite catch the 75.
75, the city contributes 75, the retiree is 25. Upon the death of a retiree, if they have a surviving spouse, that surviving spouse can stay on a city plan and contribute at a rate of 50%. The city would contribute 50% from the
Just for
survivor.
my own benefit. Married couple of two people, retired, 75% of they've gone on Medicare at this point, right?
Typically, if you're 65, it's required, and then what you would ultimately do at that point is 2 individual plans, because it's less expensive than a family plan.
Do they pay 75% of that supplement?
The city pays 75% of 2 individual plans.
Supplements.
The supplement plan, yeah, the Medicare plans, the primary would be Medicare. Keep in mind, just so you know, not everybody in the city that's a retiree would qualify for Medicare, because you had to have contributed, or your spouse had to, and because we don't contribute, we do now, but prior to 1986 maybe? 86 or 85, you could potentially have teachers. We do, the city does contribute for health insurance plans, even for the teacher retirees.
So a lifetime, say, employee of the city that never paid into Social Security, right? They're not entitled to Medicare?
They potentially could be through their spouse.
Yeah, suppose the spouse never worked. In the old days, the spouse
Right,
never
so we
worked.
do. We have people that you would stay on an HMO plan. You would have a plan through the city. It wouldn't be the Medicaid plan.
Oh,
But there
okay.
are plans available for individuals that
And they-
actually fall into that category. And so long as the actual retiree of the city is alive, the city presently, under the present rules of the city, would contribute 75%.
5%.
If the retiree dies,
Yeah.
and they have a surviving spouse, the surviving spouse would be entitled to a benefit of the 50% contribution from the city. They would pay 50%.
Thank you,
You're welcome. Yep.
thank you.
Counselor Jackson, do you have a question?
Not right now. Thank
Council
you.
Hall?
I have another question. I'm trying to understand because I don't want, of course, I'm looking to see where you are at in terms of the retirement compared to other groups, because I know you and I had a discussion about veterans and retirees and COLA. I can't remember the last time I've ever seen over a 2% raise for our COLA. And every year, I wonder if I'm going to get any at all. And then I hear that the employees here, and again, this has nothing to do with the value of the work and the value of the employees, so please, let's get that straight right off the bat. I'm just looking to see how this compares. Well, you said that they haven't had a raise. What's the 3%?
They haven't had an increase in their base.
But what's the 3%? Is 3% makes it greater, right? I don't want to be confused.
3% is the fact that it is used, 12,000 is the maximum base.
Correct, but 3% is an increase every year, correct?
The maximum increase under our system right now is $360 per year, which has been granted far and away almost every year since 1988.
Gotcha. So every year, there has been an
We're looking
increase.
to- Or, the proposal is to bring that to $390 per year. But yes,
Thank
$360
you.
per year is the maximum that retiree gets.
Okay, so I am correct in saying that every year you have had an increase because it's written in. So I don't want to gloss over that as if it's nothing to consider. I mean, a 3% raise every year is already in the system.
Of
So-
the first 12,000.
Well,
With all due respect, with your military
Right.
pension, if you
Right.
get 2%, it's on your full pension. Correct?
yeah, it's on my full pension.
Yes,
That's one of the biggest differences.
yes.
Right.
So with the average pension in Attleboro is $26,000, if you look at it, it's less than 1.5% in
Right.
all actuality.
And as I look through some of these numbers of some of these other cities, not every city gets 3%. I see many cities out here that, or at least one that gets 1.5. So there are some cities that don't get 3%, so it's just a local thing too. So in my mind, I sort of look at it, it's fairly generous, if you would. I don't want to necessarily use that word. I guess maybe people wouldn't think that. But to me, to have it written in 3% raise every year is good. Go ahead. I want to understand. I'm trying to
I
understand.
want to say that the 3% is part of what we have as an actuarial assumed rate of, it's built into the assumed funding schedule. The 3% isn't guaranteed unless there's a vote of the board. And it's my understanding, so the way, yes, we've done a 3% COLA on the first 12,000. It's built into the actuarial assumptions. If the CPI, Consumer Price Index, is greater than 3%, there is no requirement for the retirement system to hold a public hearing. However, at least as long as I've been on the board, we always hold a public hearing and invite people to come and say whether or not they support or don't support the cost of living adjustment. If the CPI is less than 3%, there is, if it's greater than 3%, there's no public hearing required. We do the public hearing no matter what every year, and you can either do up to a maximum of 3%. So historically, it is voted here. I can't remember, I think there was once that there was a time that there was not a vote for the 3%, and then it was adjusted because the CPI ended up coming out higher. But it is not an automatic. There actually is a process that's followed, and people have the opportunity to come in and say, I don't agree with the CPI. And I think maybe a handful of people, if that, in the 15 years that I've served on the board, and never all at once, has anybody come forward and said, we disagree with the 3%.
Okay, so
But
the-
it is, in fairness to your statement, 3% is part of the actuarial assumed, so it's built into the budget, and historically, it has been voted.
Got it. So that's the bottom line. So basically, there has not, except maybe 1 year or so, been a time where there wasn't a 3% increase. So the usual thing is to give that. So that's what I just want to make clear, and I don't want to gloss over that. And thank you, because I want to understand, because I don't want to make an assumption in my head, thinking that you're getting it, and then I make a bad decision. So I appreciate that.
Councilor Cooper, do you still have a question?
No, not yet.
Okay. All right, Ms. Castro.
Well, Deb certainly filled in a lot of the blanks. As you know, I sent a letter to the council on January 4th to kind of outline my thoughts. I find it easier to do it in writing than speaking, but I'll try to just note a couple of things without reiterating too much of what's already been said. It was stated, so, and just to clarify, so there's a $1 million that's going to be added to our unfunded liability if this is adopted. So that's the debt, right? So that's what we need to pay off. And you had asked about the 107. So the 107 is paying current expense plus that debt off over time. And our funding schedule, I think, increases at 4% per year. So that number will be unfunded, the amortization goes up 4% a year, and I think we're paying that off over 20 years. So at the end of 20 years, it would be a little bit less because we're not paying off the old amount. But there is a long-term cost. I can't, not to compare apples to oranges, but back in 2003, we had the early retirement incentive. And I know Councilor Blair was here, and probably Councilor Jackson. And at that time, an argument was made to save money in the current budget. Well, the cost in next year's budget of that ERI is $353,000. So the point is, these decisions have long-term impact. And as Deb alluded to, and even as Gary alluded to, we've helped the city in the past, but if we didn't do that, people would have lost their jobs. So it's always kind of a yin and a yang that we need to work together. And I think, like Deb said, if money's unlimited, it'd be great to hand out, a higher COLA, but it's not unlimited, so that money is going to come from somewhere, and it's going to affect either services or current employees. So, and then the health of the fund, we've been losing ground. 10 years ago, we thought we'd have the unfunded liability paid off by 2022. Now it's 2037. Part of that is investments, part of that is that salaries have been increasing greater than assumptions. So the assumptions are always changing. We also, in this latest valuation, they allow us to kind of make up for investment losses over time instead of all at once, because you can imagine what the impact would be on the funding schedule. So we've got unfunded losses just from our investment return that we have to make up over the next 2 years. And so if we hit the 8% or the 7.8%, we're still going to be behind because we're not making up for the prior losses. So, you can't, even the 107,000, I think even just to focus on that, it could potentially be a bigger impact. Now, God willing, we earn 15% the next 2 years, and then things might look differently. And, I know the timing is never right, to Gary's point, and to ask for more. That would be a time that it might be a little bit easier to swallow. So, those are just, some additional thoughts I had. And back to, Councilor Hall. So, we can vote up to the CPI each year, as Deb said, and then, often we just go to the maximum 3%. So, everyone is getting an increase every year. They're getting what was promised to them. So it's not like anything's being taken away from anybody. So I think that's, kind of my main point. And the last thing that I kind of put in my letter is, our funding is at 66% of our liability, whereas 10 years ago it was at 76%. So like I said, we've been losing ground. Certainly we had a down market, and we've recovered a lot from that. And like I said, there's other assumptions, but If we had, if the end was in sight, instead of constantly the can being kicked down the road, now it's 2037, I think this would be a lot easier to swallow.
One final point, if I may. Of course. Talking about numbers, I was supplied with some information, I believe it's from the MMA, of comparable cities or municipalities to Attleboro, and two were chosen, Braintree and Beverly. And while Attleboro has the biggest budget, the average retirement benefit to its employees is the least. So by doing 13,000, we bring it up to start to address probably where it should be.
Do you have a copy of that we can be able to give to Mr. Owens, and you can make copies for all of us?
Sure.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Castro? Mr. Conti?
Mr. Chair, I apologize for being late. Did you discuss the Social Security contribution in my absence?
Briefly, but if you have a specific question, feel free to ask it.
Well, in a letter that the council received from Frank Valeri, the last paragraph of his first page, he states that in addition, and I quote, "In addition, as you may know, Attleboro retirees are not allowed to participate in the federal Social Security plan." And that's an error, I think. I believe that that's a misstatement, that if a Attleboro employee has worked in the private sector for 30 years and then comes to work for the city, they would receive their full Social Security benefits. And if it's 29 years, it's a percentage, it's a little less than 100%. And that's my understanding. So if I'm misunderstanding something, somebody has to correct.
Under current Social Security law, if a Attleboro municipal employee who worked full-time for the city, retired and got a pension, and also had private sector work, he is docked anywhere from 40 to 60% under the windfall elimination provision under Social Security.
Okay, so Gary, I was told by a Social Security expert that if there was 30 years of full employment in the private sector with contributions to the Social Security system, that 100% of the Social Security would be paid to that individual upon retirement, even if they then went to work for the city after working privately for 30 years.
Okay?
I would just say, what the city pays the employee, the city pays the employee. Social Security rules are the Social Security rules, they can
Right.
change them tomorrow, so I'm not,
Yeah, I think we need to, it's a valid point,
Yep.
but I think it's one that right now we need to focus on the city participation part of it.
Oh, I agree, But I just
I
wanted to
think
bring
it's an
that up.
important point to make too, Mr. Conti. I think that when you look at collectively all of this, but I think right now, this is cumbersome enough that we need to really be able to get our arms wrapped around this.
Okay, I just want the councilors to put that paragraph in question.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
No, of course, thank you. Council Blair?
I agree with Richard, because I personally looked into it, and I would not be penalized on my Social Security because of the number of years I put in prior to coming on the council. I'm a firm believer you put it in, you're entitled to it, whether it be 30 years, 5 years, 2 years, or what, but I don't like that system, the way it's handled. Me personally, have been self-employed since I was 17 years old. I kept well over 30 years. I sat down with Social Security when I went on it. And it was told to me at that time from Social Security that my Social Security would not be affected.
So that's two of us, council, because I did the exact same thing you did. I've worked for 37 years in the private sector. And I talked to the Social Security Administration, and they said that because it's over 30 years, 100% would be paid.
I just wanted to know, I mean, our pension from the city after 20 years or whatnot, isn't that enormous that it would
Correct.
Yeah.
make it?
The chairman's correct. It's really clouding the issue, and we need to
Right,
stick to the business at hand.
Absolutely, because I think that that could take us down a different track.
Yes,
But
okay,
at this
yes.
point, I don't know would be valid to the conversation. I do appreciate that piece of information, because I think it does shed some light on some other areas.
I just feel compelled to say, it depends on every individual's unique circumstance. So you were both correct. In your circumstance with greater than 30 credible years of service, you fall into one category with an offset. If you don't have 30 credible years of service, you're in a different. So one of the things that I think is very important is there's a lot of misinformation that even among municipal employees, because everybody thinks they're all the same, and you're not. Your unique work history under Social Security or with a retirement system, you need to make sure that you individually, anybody that's watching, seeks out your own information for Social Security. But 30 years, you would not have an offset. There is a declining offset. Most people don't have, most long-term municipal employees don't have 30 years in the private sector.
Right.
So to that point, someone who is a lifetime career employee in a municipality that's not going to qualify for Social Security, the only pension benefit they'd have is the one that we're talking about today. And in a lot of cases, there are people that only have whatever they get from the pension system. But your information is, as I understand it, accurate as well, Counselor.
Thank you. Any other questions, concerns on this right now? Okay, well, seeing none, I will entertain the vote. We've already got a second, so all those in favor? Aye. Aye. No, it's just us, so there's no one opposed. That motion passes. So we'll discuss this vote in front of the full council next week. The second piece of business relative to this is,
Mr. Chair? Sorry. Before you do that, can I just introduce this in and just explain what it is and have the councilors just have it available?
why don't we do this? Why don't you can introduce it during the second piece?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So from the docket of January 3rd, 2017, I entertain a motion to approve the Attleboro Retirement Board's request that the Municipal Council accept Section 34 of Chapter 176 of the Act of 2011, so that the stipend that is paid to the retirement board members from $3,000 to $3,500. Note, thank you, Council Denman. Note the board at its regular meeting held on November 29th, 2016, voted 3-2 with Deborah Gould and Bruce Tondreau voting nay to increase its stipend. So, Mr. Sagar, I'll open the floor to you again.
Okay, prior to 1995, none of the 5 board members were compensated for their duties on the retirement board. We came before this council and the law was accepted, and each 5 of us receive a stipend of $3,000 a year. That $3,000, or a total of $15,000 expense to the fund, comes from our investments. So with the change in the legislation, they've now allowed a stipend of up to $4,500 maximum, and the increases would have to be approved by the municipal council. Over the last few years, a lot of the new retirement laws have put a lot of extra burden on all the members and a lot of extra work. One thing that we do that nobody in the Commonwealth has to do, or any other regulatory board, is we have to fill out a very detailed financial disclosure form every year. And I know I can speak for Mr. Castro, because him and I both take great exception to having to do it. Mr. Castro, as you know, is a CPA, and he's a financial planner, and he's got a lot more credentials than I'll probably forget some, but unfortunately, the state doesn't recognize a lot of his education requirements to keep up his CPA and everything, and he's still required to do a lot of the mandatory training that we have to do every year. We have to get so many credits per year through traveling to different parts of the state to attend these different seminars. So it has created a lot of extra work for us, and with not seeing an increase in the stipend since 1995, we figured $500 was fair.
Sure. Do you mind just walking us through a little bit of what are your responsibilities? Because I know a lot of the other boards in the cities, most of the other boards in the cities don't get any sort of a stipend. So if we could just kind of walk through that so the people at home and even some of my colleagues can understand really what it is that stipend goes towards.
Okay, a big portion of our time at all our board meetings is spent on our investments. We roughly have now $130 million. And I think we have, it's either 12 or 14 different money managers. The reporting requirements, meeting with our consultants. Takes a big part of our time dealing with the employees' issues. When I say issues, retirements, buying back credible service, disabilities, holding hearings, and basically overseeing all of the pension benefits for the city and the city employees.
So, just to really bring some light to this, you're really basically doing a lot of the functions that in the private sector, there's an entire department who handles a lot of that, in terms of dealing with the funds and helping the retirees get their retirement set up.
Our role was really expanded, and I mean, the paperwork is, as you know, dealing with any state agency
Sure.
is just, it just keeps multiplying.
Yep.
And I think Jim and Debbie could certainly expand on that some more.
Sure. Council Conti.
We're fiduciaries of the system.
Right.
You know, and ultimately responsible for that safeguarding of that $130 million, as well as, you know, implementing all the retirement laws.
Excellent. No small task.
No,
So my question is, are you affiliated at all with a county retirement program? No. So you're operating independent and solo. And how many times do you meet a year?
We meet monthly, at least.
Every month. And how long do those meetings typically last?
3 to 4 hours.
And does the state offer a retirement board any kind of certification? If you achieve so many courses or so many, you are recognized by the state as being a retirement board professional? No.
I took a course many years ago that was offered by Boston College, and I'm a level 1 certified pension professional.
Excellent.
Big title, you know.
No, that's exactly what I was asking for. So there are private colleges that offer this type of study as a curriculum.
Well, not really. This is a course that was designed especially for members of retirement boards. They don't even do it anymore.
Oh.
So we have a state organization and through our state oversight agency, PERAC, that schedules a lot of these seminars. And we're required to do so many hours per year.
So every so many years, someone looks to see whether or not the board has kept up their continuing education?
We get a report card every year from the state.
The state is monitoring your progress in your funding, as well as personal activities.
Correct.
Professional activities, that's what I meant to say.
So if I did, for example, I have a 3-year term, I'm one of the employees reps, if I didn't go to any certification, I didn't take any classes, and I had 0 credits, they supposedly by law have the right to order whoever does not pay me my stipend
And kick you off the board.
and kick me off the board. Yeah.
Okay, and when you go to these seminars, is the fund paying for the education cost?
if there is a cost, a lot of them are free of charge because the state does mandate them. They put a number of them on free of charge.
So is this through the Department of Labor Services or the?
No, it's, you know, it's very logical, as you would imagine, you know. You can take
It's
a,
the state.
You take a ethics online course in
Yes.
30 minutes and get 3 hours, or you can go to an all-day seminar and get 3 hours.
Yeah.
Or you can go to a, 3-day conference and get, 9 hours, I think.
If you're there on one day, but the other 2 days, you get nothing.
Yeah.
It's,
So-
it's not exactly what, from our perspective, the,
It's the government.
On the up and up.
The courses,
you know what,
the
it's-
courses that you're taking are courses on how to manage money managers?
honestly, it depends. And I hate to say it like that, but to Jim's point, a conflict of interest class, because that's a requirement. The ethics class is something that all government officials have to
Yes.
take. We all know that you have to take that online stuff, and that qualifies for 3 credits. So somebody at PERAC has decided that that warrants 3 credits worth of credible towards your 18 and a 3-year term, no more than 9, no less than 6. From our perspective, there are other opportunities like CPA classes that Mr. Castro may go to that have way more to do with investments that are of greater benefit to us as a board because, he brings back knowledge from that, his own, and then shares it with us, but those aren't considered points. A lot of these changes were from the change in retirement law that took effect for April 2nd, 2012. So the rules before April 2nd, 2012 for members are different than those afterwards. So part of the reason I think for the increase in stipend under the statute was you now have two sets of rules that you need to make sure that an individual who is a member of our system, which rule applies. We are very fortunate as a board. We have two wonderful employees who work in the department and help us to navigate that. Our meetings are considerably longer now than they were before. The amount of work that we have to do and read potentially, at least I know for myself, I can't speak for my colleagues, but I presume the same to be the same case for them, that we read a lot more outside of whatever it was. So aside from the classes and stuff like that that we're required to take, aside from the statement of financial interest that we have to fill out that no one else in the Commonwealth has to fill out. Those things that we now have to do as a result in the change in the statute and the acts of 176 of 2011, which affected everything in 2012, it is a lot more work. The retirement board happens to be my favorite part of my job. I learn something there every week. I've sat on the board for better than 16 and a half years now, and I learn something new every month that I'm there. We are fortunate we have an attorney that comes in and helps us navigate because the changes in law are constant, interpretations to the law are constant. The impact to all of the employees, active members, retired members, and everything. So,
So it's a lot more than a 3 to 4 hour meeting a month, from what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
That's the minimum.
Yeah. Council Hall.
Okay, so you're a paid employee of the city?
Yep.
And would you also then get a stipend for being on the board?
I do. I'm the ex officio member of the board. and
Okay,
that's
are you,
why.
Mr. Sager, a paid employee of the city and would also get a stipend, or do you get
I'm
nothing
a
right now?
retiree of the city, and I get a $3,000 stipend.
You get $3,000 stipend for being on this board?
Being on this board, yeah.
So already you get a stipend for being on this board?
We all do, all 5 of us do.
So the makeup of the retirement board is,
Well, I'm just asking a specific question. And so you also get a $3,000 stipend
Yes.
currently?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Deb, if you would, just go through the makeup of the board. I think it's
sorry,
important.
yeah,
No,
the
I think
makeup
that's
of the
great.
board
Thank you.
is there's one member appointed by the administration, ex officio by virtue of the position city auditors in communities that have their own retirement system, which Attleboro does. That's why I'm on the board. 2 members of the board are elected by the membership, whether it's an active or retired, or the members of the system elect that. That's the chairman, Mr. Sagar, and Bruce Tondo is the second elected member. And the 5th member cannot be a member of the system and is elected by the other 4 members. And that happens to be Richard Boucher, who was the city treasurer in the city of Attleboro prior to Ethel Sandbach for, I don't know, he was on the board and has been on the board since the 80s, since the board's inception. He is the 5th member of the board. So that's how it is. And every member of the board does receive a stipend. This would increase the stipend from $3,000 to $3,500.
Excellent. Thank you for that
Thank you.
clarification. Any other questions or concerns? Ms. Hall, I know you said you had something you wanted to...
Yes, thank you. In my attempt to do research and analysis, apples to apples, the book that Mr. Sager has there, from PERC, if I'm not mistaken?
PERC, yes.
PERC, excuse me. What it does is it lists every one of the cities and towns in the state of Massachusetts, and it also states their average benefits. Now, when you talk about comparing apples to apples, oranges, it's hard to do that. So I looked for some marker here to be able to compare, and I spoke to Mr. Sager, and I wanted to see how, if our folks were bad off or worse off than other places, then definitely I want to keep that in mind, and I want to make that right. So what I ended up...
So what I'm going to do, I don't want to cut you
Go
off,
ahead.
but where we've already voted on that motion,
Yeah,
just hand
Hand
it
it
out.
out.
And then if there are any questions about what she's handing out, if we could email
Yes,
Mr. Owens.
thank you.
And then take it out. But thank you for doing that
No,
work
thank
as
you.
always. We appreciate it. Any other questions for our guests here tonight? Okay, well, thank you all very much for coming down. This is quite a cumbersome bit of reading we have in front of us over the course of the next week, but I'm assuming that it's all right to offer up your services if anyone has any questions to reach out to you.
Absolutely,
Okay,
absolutely.
terrific. All right, well, thank you. All right, give me a second. I would like to put this to a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, that is all the business, well, actually, I have one last
Thank you
piece
for
of business.
volunteering.
I just want to wish my beautiful bride a happy
$3,000
Valentine's
and paying for your own
Day.
education.
She's at home with my 10-year-old child. We'll be home this weekend. But have a great Valentine's Day, and I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, we are opposed. We are
You're
adjourned
opposed.
at 7:55. Thank you very much.
Good job.
Licenses is canceled for tonight.
I'm canceled.
Budget is canceled for this evening.
Yeah. Hi, hello.
I call the
no, that's
committee
fine.
meeting for
kept me from giving-
transportation and traffic to order at 7:56. Tonight I have Brother Rob from La Salette here as a guest. Thank you so much for your patience and waiting for us for this evening.
Thank you for inviting me.
It's always hard to gauge how long the wait will be, but thank you for being here tonight. I do have, let's see, from, whoa. So I invited Brother Ron here this evening because we do have business in front of us. There was a request for a crosswalk on Park Street at La Salette Shrine. And so you were away for a little while. This came in a few weeks ago, and I stopped down to see you, and you weren't there. So,
I was in the Philippines.
well, welcome home. That is a long trip.
It's a long trip.
But I would like, my committee members are Sarah Lynn Reynolds and Acting President Dunley. What is the need? Why did you make the request?
Well, I made the request only because
Oh, excuse me.
Discuss it.
I don't have it in the form.
But it got referred to committee last week. Just,
So sorry, Brother Ron.
just go discuss it. It's fine.
I could make a motion without,
I don't,
I don't have a date on it. We can have the discussion without reading the motion, can't we?
Yes, you can have discussion, you can vote it out of committee next week.
Right.
With the proper motion.
Right, I have the
Call for a
expectation.
meeting before our regular meeting, just to
And we
just
can
get it out.
do
Yeah.
it, thank you.
You're fine.
Okay. My apologies. So you made the request. Why do you feel it is necessary to install a crosswalk?
because of the house that we're fixing up across the street for our three nuns that are La Salette nuns that are living with us right now. And we finally got permission to fix the house across the street so they could have a home for themselves. And of course, they work with us at the shrine, so they'll be moving in there probably next month. And we just felt that it would be a little bit safer for the Three Sisters as they cross Park Street. As you know, it's a busy street, and that it would, we're hoping that it would, the traffic would slow down a little when they see the crosswalks, so that the sisters can come across, because they'll be coming across, 2 or 3 times a day. And so, just would hate to see any sister get hit by a car, So I just thought, we thought that it would be safer if we could have the crosswalk put in.
Do they have a vehicle?
They do have a vehicle, and there's one driver. Okay?
Okay. I'm happy to entertain any questions.
Sure,
Counselor
thank you.
Jackson?
Hi, Father. How are you? Nice to see you. Just for reference to the rest of the councils who aren't familiar with that area, that house itself has been emptied for like
7 years.
How many years?
7.
See, I thought it was longer than that. But there's no other houses around there. I mean, I live not too far up the street, but there's a long way before you see another house when you're facing the house itself from La Salette parking lot. So you look to the right, it's a long time before you hit the first street. I think it's Doran Street. It would be much, much further down the street. And then to the left, the first house you see is quite a ways down as well.
It's the old folks' home there.
And I know that our Public Works Superintendent has concerns, correct?
Correct.
About having crosswalks in certain areas because he doesn't feel that crosswalks are safe themselves. One thing I do have a question to you is because I look at today especially because it was very icy and snowy in my own driveway. So the sisters, are they going to walk all the way up the hill to the house all the time?
Well, most of the time, it
God
depends.
bless
I think sometimes they'll drive, they'll take the car, but two of them work in the gift shop, but one works in the office, and they have different schedules, So, and there's only one driver who happens, the sister that works in the gift shop, So, and then, so they go and come, as they please, and when they're off, they'll come over to, they'll walk over to the house, She's not gonna wait till sister gets out of the gift shop at 5 o'clock or, something.
Right.
At that time, she's, all through her work earlier, she'll walk over,
So if this crosswalk doesn't get approved, what do you think about some type of, and I don't even know how this would all work, I'm just throwing it out there, but some type of signage, not neon sign, I know it sounds funny, but nuns crossing, sisters crossing.
Yeah,
But I'm very serious because we have ducks
Yeah.
crossing, we have
Right.
deer crossing, what the heck? Like, in all seriousness, no. I mean, when you look at crosswalks, and I know that our superintendent of public works has an issue with them, but we do have so many crosswalks all throughout the city. I have lots of pictures I took of ones that don't even connect to a sidewalk, they don't even go to I mean, it doesn't make any sense, it's crazy where they are. But I also understand his point where there's one further down the road where there's a bus stop. I'd like to see that bus stop moved up and kind of make it together so that the crosswalk's all together, but who knows? I'm not an engineer. But I am worried about that. I am worried about them crossing because it has been a long time since someone has lived in that home, and especially because do they still dress in darker colors as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, their habit is blue and a white veil. Now, I can tell you this, when the ducks cross the street, and everybody has to stop, and the ducks cross the street. So, back in July, we had their home base is out of Virginia for the United States. And so the sisters from there were at our place with their mother general, and they wanted to see the house. So I said, okay, come on, and we'll go over. So I drove one sister over because she has trouble walking. So I drove one over, and I waited for the others. And the others were all coming up the walk. When I got to the road, the cars stopped both sides of the road because the sisters were crossing the street. So I said, the ducks have nothing over our nuns. When the veils came out, the cars stopped, Now, will they do that all the time? I don't know. I mean, I know they don't worry about when I'm out there plowing. You gotta have eyes all around your head, even with all the lights on my truck.
Yeah.
People still keep coming, So we just worry about them going at night, And the summertime isn't bad because it's still light out and stuff. But at this time of the year, it is dark, and they do, their habits are dark blue and with a white veil, and so that's all I can tell you is that we would just feel a lot safer if there was something there for them when they cross the street.
I would too. I represent Ward 4. Counselor Denley represents Ward 5, which is La Salette, and
Right.
Ward 4 is across the street, the house.
Both of you vote at our place.
Yes. So I would like to see something too, even if we just built something like that's gold neon that they can just put over their heads when they cross the street, almost like a light. If our superintendent of
halo,
public
maybe?
works does not, yes. Yeah, I know, I don't know. That's what we need to
Councilor
find.
Jackson, that's part of the reason why I was happy that Brother Ron could come in tonight, because we haven't had an opportunity to really discuss this on the council floor. And I was hopeful that we might be able to come up with some alternative solutions to this concern. Because I have, Lance provided me with safety effects of marked versus unmarked crosswalks at various locations, and it was a report that was created in November of 2000. And I've done a substantial amount of reading. We have lots of flaggy things, and at the location where your request is right now, at that location, if you're coming from like Attleboro proper heading towards like Briggs Corner, it is kind of on a curve. And so individuals who are traveling usually at a higher, I believe the speed limit at that location is 35, but people are pushing it a little bit more than that.
Absolutely.
I know I personally may on occasion go maybe 37. So, so there's a strong concern of visibility, just having the crosswalk there for people coming from that direction. It would be a challenge, especially at the high traffic times of day, from 3:30 to 6 o'clock when people are moving along at a pretty brisk clip. In addition to that, what happens is, and what I've read through this and a variety of things and discussions about other crosswalks that have been requested throughout the city, there's individuals who are approaching a crosswalk have a sense of safety when they're in the crosswalk, that they have the right of way and that the vehicles will stop. And that is not the case. And especially in a traffic area where the speed limit is 35 and plus. 35 and over, they have a very high percentage of individual of accident rates, of collision rates. So I don't want to give the nuns the impression that they're safer by being in the crosswalk, where that may not necessarily be the case. And then in addition to that, where the onus is already on the driver, we've just made it even more complicated. I like the idea of a nuns crossing sign because it makes people aware to look and see and stop and slow down. But sometimes it's difficult for people because there's no traffic calming in that area. There's no road to turn down. There's no light. There's nothing there that kind of that's like a curved straightaway, if you will. So that's why there's been discussion about how this might not necessarily solve the problem that exists right now. I will share, I will make photocopies of some of the pages and the comments in this to share with you, with my fellow counselors, so that you can see some of those things.
Council Parecka, excuse me if I may follow up.
Please.
So the chief of police, though, felt that this was a great idea because he's concerned about public safety as far as them crossing in that area, correct?
I would not say it was a great idea. He said a variety of things to me, that he would do anything for the betterment of public safety, but he also recognizes the concern about in a high traffic area, a high speed area, that that false sense of security that people have. Like, as an example, I walk frequently with a friend of mine, and we cross in front of weather lanes, like at Bushy Street, and she'll step right out. She's like, they have to stop. And I'm forever grabbing her arm and pulling her back, saying, what are you doing? Because,
big jerky head.
Yeah, because they're not, they're supposed to stop. Doesn't mean they're gonna. And so that's where my caution lies. We've also had requests for other locations for crosswalks that we've said no to because they don't meet the warrants. And there's not a whole lot of difference between this particular request and other requests, except for who's asking for it, quite frankly. One of the things that I want to say, did you have a comment, Counselor?
I have a question. You
ahead.
confused me. I've seen the signs on the median pedestals that say state law, stop for pedestrians. Is that a state law?
It is.
That you have to stop. So your friend who's stepping into the crosswalk at Bushy is not in violation of the law. If someone hits them, they're in violation of the law.
Correct.
Okay. So what you're saying then, if I'm hearing you correctly, is that the law is you must stop for pedestrians in the crosswalk. The practice is people don't stop for the
Correct,
people in
yeah.
the crosswalk. My comment to Councilor Jackson is that I would suggest a nuns jaywalking sign, because that's really what it is. It's jaywalking if there's no crosswalk. You're walking across the street. It's
No, that's not necessarily.
perhaps it is facilitated by lighting on both streets. There is a blinking yellow light at the crosswalk,
Hope Gardens.
1/5 of a mile
Hope Gardens.
east of Hope Gardens.
Yes.
Right. That blinking light is a good warning that there's a crosswalk there. And if there's pushback on having a crosswalk, another crosswalk within that short distance, obviously everyone's talking about a plan B. And it may be that temporary lighting, like if there were lights on the La Salette property that they could turn on to cross the street, and then once crossing the street, shut the light off so that it illuminates the street when the nuns are crossing, that would eliminate the problem of darkness and dark clothing, which is a dangerous combination. I agree that the street is very busy. I travel it frequently, and I don't think anyone does 35 miles an hour on Hope Garden's curve. And Hope Garden has been complaining for years, and sitting in the back of the room is Duff White, and he and I were at a meeting at Hope Gardens 6 years ago, Duff? 4 years ago, 6 years ago, 8 years ago, and their complaint was that everyone's speeding around the corner and that the yellow light is not enough to protect them when they're trying to use that crosswalk. So it's a complicated issue. That's the way I'll conclude my comments.
Thank you. So one of the things that as page one of, because I really look at the summary recommendation and guidelines. In page one, it says, whenever considering how to provide safer crossings for pedestrians, the question should not simply be, should I provide a marked crosswalk or not? Instead, the question should be, what are the most effective measures that can be used to help pedestrians cross safely? And there's a difference. There's a difference between us trying to figure out a way to help them cross safely and simply installing a crosswalk. So there might be some, that's again, why we're having this conversation today, see if we can figure something else out. Because the truth of the matter is, between conversations that I've had with the police chief, with the DPW director, and other individuals that are wise in the ways of traffic, this isn't necessary. This will not solve the problem. It's just not. Even if the crosswalk is installed, it doesn't mean people are going to stop for you or for them. That's the hope. And in my history as a school bus driver, I can have my lights on and my reds out and everything else, and people still don't stop. And so it's that whole consciousness of providing that false sense of security. Go ahead.
Well, then why have crosswalks, period?
Amen.
Well,
Amen.
Why have crosswalks? If you're not going to enforce them, then why have them? Because what you're saying is crosswalks, people don't abide by them, and your girlfriend goes across, she's in the right to go into that crosswalk, and it's the driver who should stop. And if he hits her, he's at fault, because he has to control his car at all times. So if what you're saying is, then let's take all the crosswalks off the city.
I certainly did not say let's take crosswalks out across the city. I did not say that.
But what you just said was that the traffic people are stepping on, it's not doing any good, and people are just going by. So you might as well take the crosswalks out, because nobody's abiding by the law.
I'm so sorry, Brother Ron, but that's not what I said. What I said was, so first of all, let me just say, legal crosswalks exist at all public street intersections, whether they're painted there or not. Part of the problem with this particular request is that it's not at an intersection. It's not at an area where there's traffic calming. It's not in any of the places that a normal crosswalk would exist.
neither is Hope Gardens.
And neither is Hope Gardens.
Hope Gardens should not have a crosswalk there either. It's just a bus stop. And just further up the street at La Salette, where you have your safe, right? That's a bus stop, like a few yards up. But I always see people like waiting on the other side as well, but there's no crosswalk, and I understand that, but yeah, Hope Gardens is illegal. As far as I'm
It's not
concerned,
illegal, because it's
supposed to be an intersection.
The only way a
not
crosswalk can exist is at a mid-block location, is if it is marked. So there are protocols for that. Again, this goes on to say in a variety of ways, like in terms of speed and crash severity, analysis shows that speed limits of 35 miles and above were associated with a greater percentage, 43% more accidents of fatal and A-type injuries compared to sites having lower speed limits. 23% of crashes result in a fatal or A injury crashes. So when it's kind of like if we put, so I had no business with the Hope Gardens crosswalk, but with this one, I have strong concerns because, yes, the onus is on the vehicles to stop. I think we're adding there's the potential that we're adding an additional burden onto those drivers in that area at those certain at all times of the day, no matter when they're crossing. As well as creating a circumstance for 3 individuals who need to come and go. I get it. I'm just concerned for them. I'm concerned for that.
As we all are,
safety.
we all are. But you also have to take into consideration, like your friend that you said, she has a responsibility. You don't just walk out in the street. You're not like a 3-year-old kid and you didn't look both ways. You stop and you look both ways and you wait, and then you wait for them to stop for you, and that's how it's supposed to go, as far as I'm concerned. And you're just as responsible as a pedestrian as they are as the driver.
Agreed.
As far as I'm concerned, that's how it is. You
the
stop, you
rules-
wait, you look, and then you cross. That's how it works.
The rules of it is that police cannot give a ticket for that kind of violation unless you have stepped into the crosswalk. So it's kind of like
Double-edged sword.
So if you're standing there, they don't have to stop, but if you step in, you're risking your life. So it's kind of pretty convoluted with that. I believe that you had your hand up first.
Well, I'm just, you know how I feel about these traffic things, even what happened down in South Attleboro with an extra stop sign and these kinds of things. Although you always are looking for the safety of the people crossing, now you're putting the safety of a driver. For years, there has not been one there. That we have a lot of young drivers, schools in the area, not just adult drivers, but that have been using that roadway, going 35 to, let's say, 50 at times, and all of a sudden you're going to throw up this crosswalk. You're talking that you're putting not just the people crossing, but the people driving in severe danger. And yes, everybody should know, just like they should know in South Attleboro, that hey, there's a two-way end of street here, you should stop. Everybody gets a driver's license and through driver ed. You take this test and you're supposed to know these certain rules. Putting a crosswalk there when it's not really a legitimate place to put one puts a lot of different people at risk for some kind of an accident or even a fatality. So I think that I don't know what the answer is. I think this is what we're struggling with. I don't know what Lance has proposed or what maybe our chief has proposed as a better idea for that versus a crosswalk. Something, what is going to be there that is going to say to the oncoming driver, oh my God, I see something.
Right.
Because you don't always see the crosswalk. I mean, we know that right across from Capron Park. We're talking about 123 where there's all kinds of lights stopping, there's this, there's that going on, slowing down because people are turning into retail sites, and yet they missed the crosswalk. And it's right there, and we know that because the police are right out there during the summertime months with people crossing over to go to Capron Park in that area. So now we're going to think about putting one where people are going 35. I know it says 35, but we're talking a lot of different people that use that area. And I just think we need to give it a little bit more thought. What would address the driver as well as the nuns walking across, because I think that's where we're running into some trouble, in my own opinion.
Thank you. And I'm just going to, the driver, and again, I'll make photocopies of the highlighted points of this for everyone to have, but it also states the study results revealed that very few motorists stopped or yielded to pedestrians either before or after marked crosswalks were installed. So it made little to no change, whether there was an installed crosswalk or not installed crosswalk, on whether or not people would stop.
So we
I don't
need
know
to,
if they see it. Oh,
Sorry.
excuse me.
sorry, no, I interrupted
Councilor
you.
Blair and then Councilor Cooper.
Well, I'm of the opinion that the crosswalk is necessary, but on top of the crosswalk, how about a light that blinks when somebody's using it on the side of the house side, or across the way? You hit the button, it blinks for 5 minutes, 2 minutes, whatever, to warn a driver as they're approaching this area that there is reason for caution. A flashing yellow light, what does that mean? Caution, right? But as you said, there's a responsibility on the pedestrian, too. So, is a crosswalk enough? No, it's not. But a crosswalk is necessary, in my opinion. You've got to add to it. You've got to make it better. But, I mean, I think it's a lot to do about just getting some common sense into this rather than just saying, we paid 2 white lines.
Talking about
So I would have to say that that's what I'm trying to do here, is that there's a need and there's a request at hand, but I'm also trying to, I have to be cognizant of the fact that we have to have the same policy citywide. I also have to, excuse me, and that's what I'm trying to relay to you information here that shows that a simple installation of a crosswalk at this particular location is not actually going to, it may not actually reap the benefit that we're looking for. And it may actually increase some of the danger, where instead of them, the nuns, there crossing, jaywalking, if that's what we want to call it tonight, without the assistance of a crosswalk. Bless you. Those are what my concerns are. That's all. And we had a request for a crosswalk down on County Street where they have 3 rehabilitated condo houses, and we told them no because we have access to other crosswalks that aren't that far away, and throwing one in the middle of there because it's convenient to their parking across the street was not a good enough reason for us to install a crosswalk. So I have to try, as the chairperson for traffic and transportation, I have to try and find a balanced ground. I'm also asking for other recommendations. One of those good recommendations was to have a sign up that's, people's eyes are drawn to be looking for someone standing on the side of the road to cross.
But can I just, in comparison, you're comparing County Street to 118. And you said we refused a crosswalk because there was one close by. There's pavement for people to walk on County Street. This is not the same situation. You're not comparing apples to apples.
I would disagree. Mr. Delizio.
Thank you. We're talking about 2 crosswalks. And forgive my ignorance if this is even possible.
Go ahead.
But we're talking about putting one here and then the one in Hope Garden. Is it possible to look into potentially relocating the Hope Gardens crosswalk into a more central location?
So unfortunately, my answer to that would be no, because people are accustomed to now, I don't know how long that crosswalk has been there, but people are now accustomed to that one being there, and there's a bus stop there and things like that. And so it's not usually the standard that is used that once we install something, that we take it away. It messes people up. So that happens where we have, emergency stop signs throughout the city. The chief of police can put up a stop sign wherever he wants. It's in a 90-day, but people become accustomed to that, and we typically accept that as an ordinance change. Councilor Hall.
Thank you, and I'm sorry. I know Councilor Cooper, I just want to recognize Councilor Cooper.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. Sorry, and I don't mean, and then I'll
yield the floor.
Yield the floor, and then come back, and then come on back to me.
Thank you. A couple of questions. One is, so I'm having a hard time with this. So tell me if there's sidewalks on both sides of the street at where the sisters will be crossing the road to the house?
There's not.
No.
There is not on either side of the road?
nowhere unless Hope Gardens, just on Hope
I know the
Gardens
answers
side.
to these questions, but I'm just saying them so that we're all on the same page. Are there curb cuts at the entryway to La Salette
No.
with tactile?
No.
Thank you.
Because it would have to be ADA.
Right, that's why I said the
Yes.
tactile entryways with ramps that grade, the appropriate grade. So, and we know that it's a higher speed, and we know that people go faster than they should. We know that the same, I'm going to reverse Sarah's sort of, there hasn't been a crosswalk there, so it would be dangerous. There also hasn't been people crossing there since the 7 years that the house has been abandoned, other than the times when perhaps you had gone over to look at them over the period of that time frame. So I think that there are no two situations that are exactly the same. There is no comparison apples to apples, because the apple's core is longer, it's got more seeds, it's a different brand, it's got a bird peck in it. There's no comparing apples to apples. Let's apply the reasonableness test to the request, right? Okay, so here we go. Vacant house, 7 years. They bought it.
No.
Well, they gave it to them. Well, who cares how they got it? They own it now. And these lovely ladies are going to work across the street, and they're coming up the hill, and people are blasting by them at 35 miles an hour. To me, it doesn't seem, I'm going to apply my reasonableness test, unreasonable to have 2 lines that go like this across the road with some hash marks, to give them and the people around them, when they see them flying down the road, that they're standing in the crosswalk, perhaps a notion, because you can put all the flashing signs you want. You can put lights, you can flip switches in the house when you're over there, and one over here when you're here, or get a remote control, or do whatever you want to do. But again, let's apply the reasonableness test. They got to get across the street safely. They're going at night. They're wearing dark blue, and nobody's been doing it. So to me, it sort of seems reasonable, but I get it. I get where you're sort of at with, applying a reasonableness test across all requests, so that it doesn't necessarily appear that because it was the nuns from La Salette asking. I mean, if you don't stop for the nuns in the crosswalk, I know where you're going and it's not up. Right? So let's just be honest.
This is funny.
We've talked, for me, we've talked probably 25 minutes longer than we should have about the crosswalk at La Salette. It's the reasonableness test. If, yes, there's one further down that shouldn't be there, and there's lots of things that shouldn't be. But this one, to me, feels like it should be. And maybe we say, let's put a curb cut. Let's do other things to enhance the safety of the where you propose to put this thing, or does it make sense to move it up or move it down or move it over or turn the color or get one of those things in the road that people hit and we can't replace them.
$800 a piece.
Yeah. It just sort of, I'm troubled by it, because to me this, it seems like sort of the right thing to do for what is going on and what they're trying to do, yet we can't seem to, we're at this impasse.
I don't necessarily know if we're at an impasse. Quite frankly, I'm trying to share. So I'm, for lack of a better word, playing devil's advocate here tonight. And there's been a lot of discussion. Heather, how can you not give the nuns a crosswalk? Heather, and it's not about giving the nuns a crosswalk or not giving nuns or giving secular people crosswalks, or it's like no one is held to a higher standard. Humans are humans. I'm just trying to, through the discussions, again, that I've had, and where we get requests regularly for crosswalks and the ability to enforce it, and the false sense of security that people get, and a variety of other things, I have concerns about the ability for this to truly actually solve the problem. And that's what my concern is. Councilor Hall.
Thank you. And in all due respect to all the comments, I think it's great. Councilor Parika, I think, is saying that she is going to look into many things, which is what I would expect the chair to do, because that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to look into many things. So I don't think she's saying no. She's just saying, I'm not sure if that's the right thing to do. And I want to talk about secular arrangements. Right across the street from me is a crosswalk, a beautiful crosswalk for St. John's. You can have those children in their beautiful little Catholic uniforms standing there. Nobody stops. And I sit there and say, and the priest standing right with them. And I'm on my little jog and I have to stop because I watch the cars go by, and I step out into the middle of the crosswalk and play row guard because I'm thinking nobody can see this group of children. So the answer is no, they don't. They don't stop. And I'm very concerned about the children, let alone the nuns and the Catholicness of them, and I'm Catholic, so I can say that, okay? All right, so this is not the question that's at hand. I think the question is, and I think that Councilor Parika's, has done a very passionate job of making sure that their safety issues are taken to the fullest extent. And I think that's, if I'm hearing what you're saying is that, what she's saying is crosswalk may not be enough. It may not be the safest thing, and I agree that that probably is true, just from what I've seen. So it doesn't have to do with religious things, it doesn't have to do with children, it doesn't have to do with whatever, and I know you'll do a good job.
Thank you. It's right, so the other part of this too is that it's kind of a self-created hazard. So it was it's a circumstance that has kind of come out of your needs, and so it's now upon us to try and solve what that problem that's been created has been. So we're working on it, and I'm glad that you were able to come in tonight and share with us, and we've been waiting to have this conversation. If it's okay, I will call on Councilor Delicio and then
Thank you.
Jackson.
It's funny, when we're sitting here and all these ideas, we're talking about a light, or we're talking about a crosswalk, or we're talking about a sign.
Or a zip line.
Well, why not all three? Well, the zip line would be kind of fantastic in itself. I just don't know how
Talk about the
realistic.
flying nun. I'm sorry, I don't like to make jokes.
like that.
When I think about it, I think, what's to say we can't do the crosswalk with a blinking light as well as a sign of some sort? Which I think, when we're looking at it from a holistic standpoint and really a full solution, that makes sense. I don't think it's just, we should be looking at it as pot A, pot B, pot C. Potentially, let's look at what's the probability or possibility of having all three come together.
My concern with that is the cost.
Sure.
And then add on top of that would be future requests throughout the city, where we recently had one when the busing, when they reduced busing and individuals wanted a crosswalk across Rome Boulevard. There was, one painted midway down Rome Boulevard or Rathbone Willett or wherever, and they wanted a light and all of those kinds of things, and we told them no. And that's also another area. So we all have to be cognizant of the budget restraints that we're under and the ability to be able to pay for those kinds of things. I'm more than happy to go back to the drawing board. I'm happy to go and talk to Lance and see what some of those things, like a vague price point on some of those things would be. I'm assuming, are they living there currently?
No, next month.
Next month. Okay. So we
They'll
have.
be moving in, they should be moving in by the first week of March.
Okay. Councilor Jackson.
If you don't mind, I would ask that we continue this conversation.
Absolutely.
With perhaps, maybe next time, committee, maybe have the chief of police, maybe have superintendent of public works.
Absolutely.
Just come in for a brief conversation. And I don't know if you even have to do it on a Tuesday night to carry on, if you want to do it on another time, it's fine. But I think, we can continue this conversation.
Absolutely. I had no
Yes.
expectation that we would be voting this out of committee this evening.
Thanks.
It was just where I was fortunate. Brother Ron came home and I had left him my
Great.
business card, so he called me today. I said, "Hey, what do you got plans tonight?" Little did you know we were going to suck up all of your evening. My apologies for that. Councilor Plant, did you have your hand up? Did you want to?
No,
You can. It's okay.
that's all right.
So thank you very much for coming in this evening. We'll be in touch.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Welcome home.
Yeah, thank you.
Get some sleep.
Long ways, it's a long way, but enjoyable.
So I'll be holding on to that. We'll have further discussion in another committee meeting. I was more than happy to invite the DPW superintendent and the police chief to come in and have a conversation about that. From the docket of February 21st, 2017, I entertain a motion to approve the mayor's request to appropriate $49,835 from account 1000359,000 undesignated fund balance free cash general government to fund 3541 Route 123 Thatcher Rathbun for traffic signal design improvements at County of Thatcher and County Rathbun, Willard, and Snow.
Second.
Thank you. Councilor Cooper, do you still have my backup material? So this came down in the mayor's communication last week. We've been waiting for this for a very long time. It was actually in the chute to come down last February. And unfortunately, with with the budget restrictions, this was one of the things that got passed off to the wayside. There's business in my committee that was submitted by Councilor Cooper quite a while ago. Thank you so much. To install a light at Rathbun Willard and Thatcher Street at the entrance to where Studley and Brennan Middle School are. Before we can do that, we need to have, excuse me, a design for the traffic improvements in that area, which would incorporate the County Street set of lights, County Square set of lights, and all the way down, so that they have the ability. We discussed this last night during Traffic Study Commission, that they would all kind of be working together. There's some really cool new technology that is actually satellite driven, as opposed to having it hardwired underneath the street, so that if someone, one of the common problems is if at Snell Street they push the pedestrian button. Am I not supposed to say pedestrian for the rest of the night? I just they push the button, it kind of has a tendency to throw off the other lights. But that would not necessarily be the case. That's what they're going to do the research on with regards to this. So, according to our backup documentation, the primary intent of these improvements are as follows: to provide a protective, permissive left turn for northbound traffic on County Street at the intersection with Thatcher. A protected left turn lane currently exists with no turn phase. So, if you are on County Street, coming from Lower County, going towards the center of town, when you're at the set of lights with Castro's Liquor on your left-hand side, there is no left-hand turn there. So that causes all sorts of traffic snafus on a regular basis. This would actually install, it would actually install a left-hand turn signal there at that location. This will also provide a signalized intersection at Rathbun Willard Drive at the intersection with Thatcher Street in an effort to alleviate congestion at the intersection. This is, where the schools are. And to coordinate the traffic signals and adjust existing signal timings in order to facilitate the efficiency of vehicular and pedestrian traffic flow through the corridor. Let's see, it says proposals from engineering companies were evaluated to provide preliminary engineering, final engineering, generation of construction plans, and construction administration. VHB Inc. provided the lowest fee at the $49,835. Any questions or concerns? You must be thrilled.
Can't wait.
Can't wait. So I will move this for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion passes. I just wanted to take a moment. We did have Traffic Study Commission meeting last night. I just wanted to thank Mr. Delisio for coming in. We had some discussion with regards to the request for parking restrictions at 6 Park Avenue. I'm not necessarily ready to discuss that here this evening, but I will follow up with that. And I think, did you want to talk about the community hearing or not? You want to wait on that?
Yeah, let's wait on
Okay.
that for a second.
So that concludes my business for this evening. I call for adjournment at 8:38.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
And we are adjourned. I'm going to go home because I'm dying.
Mr. Conti, I've been very kind to you tonight, but it's my turn at the desk.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was looking at the agenda and I was listed after license. You can have the chair.
I might be leaving early tonight. I'm not
Right ahead.
feeling it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Like to call Committee on Public Safety Emergency Management to order at 8:39. I've got a number of motions this evening, none of which are too complicated. From the
Famous
doctor.
last words.
Huh?
Famous last words.
From the docket of February 21st, 2017, I entertain a motion to approve the mayor's request to transfer $700 from account 1210100-519110 police clothing allowance to account 12101 1-000-558310, police uniform, to cover the associated costs with purchasing a uniform for a new dispatcher.
Second.
Pretty self-explanatory. We get a dispatcher, we need a uniform.
Contractual, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other comments, questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Secondly, I entertain a motion to approve the mayor's request to transfer $32,508 from account 1124100-578300 city-wide reserve fund for transfer to the following accounts: to be used for the fire department for foul weather gear, uniforms, and medical consultations for the addition of 6 firefighters/paramedics. $20,000 to account 1220100-558320, fire foul weather gear, and $6,300 to account 1220100-558310, fire uniforms, and $6,000 to account 1220100-53014, fire medical consultation.
Second.
These are also all contractual, new firemen coming on. Foul weather gear sounds like you're going out in the snow, but that's the outfit, the equipment they're issued to protect themselves when they're in line of duty. Yes, Ms. Hall?
Yeah, just as a comment, I talked to the fire chief about this too, about the hiring, and I think there's going to be more after
Yeah.
this. So this is the first 6 that got hired on, and they will probably get another request. 'Cause I think,
As it comes up.
yeah, I think there's a few more that are going to be hired, so thank you, yeah.
Any other questions or comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. I entertain a motion to approve the mayor's request to transfer $19,377.36 from account 1124100-57830, citywide reserve fund for transfer, to account 1220100-515075, fire earned time payment due to an unanticipated firefighter retirement in fiscal year 2017.
Second.
Then again, self-explanatory, we know when people retire, we pay them their sick time and vacation time.
Excuse me, Mr. Blair.
Yes,
Just saying. Unanticipated means you don't know that they're going to retire ahead of time. In reading the backup material, we know that someone who's going to be 65 years old has to leave. So that should have been in the budget, and I would like to see that further on.
Yeah.
If we know someone's going to be 65 and they're going to have to leave, that should already be in the budget, and that should have been done
Should have been
well ahead of
caught.
time.
should have been caught.
Yes.
But as the motion as presented, I mean, we've got to
Duly noted.
appropriate that money. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. I entertain a motion to approve the mayor's request to appropriate $140,000 from account from account 1000-3590000, undesignated fund balance free cash general government, to account 1220100-513000, fire overtime due to a significant increase in the injured on duty claims, IOD, at the fire department in fiscal year 2017.
Second.
Pretty self-explanatory. We've had some extra overtime due to increased and injured duty claims. Yes, Ms. Hall?
I would, at some point in time, I don't want to hold up the vote for this,
Yeah.
but, I mean, I'd like to have some more detail, I mean, outside of this, about the injured and duty claims.
I don't think we can get too much more in detail where it's an injury in a medical situation.
It would be nice to, yeah, I mean, it'd be nice to know, like, what do they think it's attributed to? What are they doing to, yeah, that kind of stuff. So preventative or,
All right.
you're right. I mean, and again, I don't want to hold to the vote for it. Got nothing to do with that, but it'd be nice to know.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. I entertain a motion in accordance with Chapter 1, Section 12 of the revised ordinance of the City of Attleboro to approve expending of approximately $8,637 in FY 2017 student awareness of fire education, the SAFE grant, and FY 2017 senior SAFE grant funds, and that any future grant amendments by the Attleboro Fire Department.
Second.
This is, this particular one, now I gotta think and go back to the backup. This particular one is a 50/50 grant, but we're able to, somebody got the backup, I didn't bring it up, but we're able to do that because of the
Past
city.
expenditures.
Huh?
Past expenditures.
Past expenditures we've used for infrared
Yep.
detectors. The city has already allocated money, so that will make up our 50% match. Correct?
Correct. And it's just, it's a wonderful program too.
Yeah.
SAFE does a lot in terms of fire education, so this is one of those that comes down. It's always great to see that we can expend it, so.
Two good areas. I mean, our seniors
Yep, absolutely.
and our children in the school system learning safety, fire safety. So it's money well spent, and we have the opportunity to use our share of it. It's money already allocated. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Finally, last motion. I entertain a motion in accordance with Chapter 1, Section 12 of the revised ordinance of the City of Attleboro to approve expending of $14,460 in emergency management performance grants, funds by the City of Attleboro.
Second.
This is a non-matching grant, I believe, and we're fortunate to have some of the grant writers we've got. Any comments, questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Move to adjourn at 8:47.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, we are adjourned. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay.
Before I call Public Works Committee to order, I just want to wish my condolences to the family of Robert McKerney Sr., Mac, who worked for the Parks Department for 35 years, 37 years.
At least.
Yeah. Well-known, well-loved, has passed away. His son, Robert. Yesterday.
Yesterday.
His,
Great guy.
yes, a great guy.
Oh, a terrific guy.
Big guy, just big human, big shoulders, nice, warm, loving man with a voice that just carried the world.
Nothing but support.
Yes,
Yep.
yeah, you know, what a
Great
wonderful,
guy.
wonderful man. The city was very, very fortunate to have him, and as well as his family members, his son Bob Jr., who served on the Attleboro Police Department, and his grandson, who works for the Water Department now. But we wish them our condolences, and our thoughts and prayers are with them.
Absolutely.
So, I'm going to call the Committee on Public Works to order at 8:49. Great. So I wasn't here last week. I was away on vacation. I had a lot of stuff put in my committee, and I saw that Councilor Conti and I got quite a bit from water and wastewater. I met with Paul Kennedy yesterday, and you told me you had met with him as well last week to discuss. There's a lot of projects that are happening in that department. And as you know, Mr. Kennedy has only been in charge of water for the last 2 years. So he's now overseeing both departments and is seeing a lot of things that that might have been upkept sooner, and we wouldn't be going through all this at the same time. So there's a lot of projects in here, which I'm going to bring out those motions this evening. But also, I just wanted to mention that last week I was to have a public hearing held for a pole with Verizon, and I apologized. I'd asked my co-chair to be here that evening to conduct that, and she was unable to attend that meeting, so I understand things got a little confused, but I am going to bring that motion out as well this evening because I understand the public hearing was closed. So I just want to disclose that as well. So firstly, I entertain a motion to approve the mayor's request to appropriate $241,100 from account 6000-359000 Wastewater Enterprise Fund retained earnings to fund 3220 gravity thickener to rebuild gravity thickener number 3 at the wastewater department.
Second.
Thank you. So I discussed a lot of sludge issues with Mr. Kennedy, which is not a nice topic to discuss. And it's rather confusing to me at first, because the more he gets into the intricacies of the machinery and how everything works, and deep it goes and spins around, and it gets thicker and thicker, and then it's dredged out, and that's cleaned sludge. And I'm like, how can you clean sludge? But they do. They make it work. But this is necessary to continue to make things work. And if you're sitting in Mr. Kennedy's office, there are 2 big, I'm going to call them containers, but they are the gravity thickener containers. And one of them is running properly, and the other one now we just need to update a little bit more. So that's what this is for. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Second, I entertain a motion to approve the mayor's request to appropriate $23,000 from account 6000-359000 Wastewater Enterprise Fund retained earnings to account 6000-584073 Wastewater Enterprise Fund filter press pump to purchase an additional hydraulic pump as a spare for the wastewater department's filter press feed pumps.
Second.
Thank you. Again, this is a necessary replacement part that they need to get taken care of rather quickly to continue to make things run. He feels he is in despair if we don't get these particular projects up and running quickly. So that's what this is for. Any questions, comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. I entertain a motion to approve the mayor's request to appropriate $60,000 from account 6100-359000 Water Enterprise Fund retained earnings to account 6100-587016 Water Enterprise Fund storage tanks to purchase and install 2 bulk 1,400-gallon sodium hydraulic storage tanks and associated fittings and 4 110-gallon day tanks with associated fittings and steel epoxy coated stands for the Wading River pump station.
Second.
Thank you. This is down at the Wading River, and those pumps have been going and have been running for the last 15 to 25 years. So we've been very, very lucky that they have lasted this long. And this is to hold, like, sodium hypochlorite is chlorine, and chlorine eats up things. So these are specific tanks that will hold the chlorine so that it can't be eaten up as quickly as it has in the past, because these are older tanks. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. I entertain a motion to approve the mayor's request to appropriate $30,000 from account 6100-359000 Water Enterprise Fund retained earnings to account 6100-584077 Water Enterprise Fund sludge collector equipment to purchase a new drive assembly for the pre-treatment sludge collectors at the water treatment plant. The installation will be done by plant personnel.
Second.
Thank you. Once again, we're talking about sludge collectors, and this one pertains to collecting, I gotta get this right, because I was listening to it, I'm like, wow, that thing sounded interesting. So the sludge comes in, but they are able to clean the whole sludge, but without being able to replace this particular one, we wouldn't have any water in the reservoir. So the way that the whole water, when we went and toured it, just blows my mind.
It's amazing.
But this does need to be replaced, and it really should have been done quite a while ago. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. And I entertain a motion to approve the 2017 petition for a new pole location from Massachusetts Electric Company, National Grid, requests the relocation of existing service to new pole number 8384-1. That lot can be subdivided into 3 lots without a trespass from existing pole on what will then become Lot 3.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. I thank you all very much, and I will call Public Works adjourned at 8:56 PM.
Second.
Thank you. We are adjourned.
I'll call Personnel and Human Services to order right from here. 8:56 PM. From the docket of February 21st, 2017, I entertain a motion to approve the mayor's request to transfer $5,549.63 from account 1124100-578300 Citywide Reserve Fund for transfer to account 1541100-511000 Council on Aging salary for a temporary increase in a Council on Aging employee's hours in order to accommodate the anticipated changes to the AARP income tax preparation program and other staffing issues.
Second.
Thank you. We did get a memo from Ms. McNeely regarding the income tax program, as well as that, and that is why she's asking for an additional 16 hours per week, which will give her 35 hours a week in the rate and the number of weeks, for a total funding amount of $5549.63. And she also goes into detail about how she will cross-train other individuals in the office to meet the administrative need of the departments. Any other questions, comments, problems? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Thank you. Again, from the docket of February 21st, 2017, I entertain a motion to approve the mayor's request to confirm the appointment of David Wood of 27 Rocklawn Avenue to fill an unexpired term on the licensing board, term to expire February 2018.
Second.
Thank you. Councilor Jackson?
Well, I just wanted to say, Mr. Cooper, I happened to go to a licensing board meeting recently, as well as Council Hall, and Mr. Wood was sitting in on the meeting just to see what it was about and to kind of get an ear of it and to figure out how it all worked, to make sure, he could work with the other board members. And it was a very interesting meeting. And I'm glad to see that he actually enjoyed it and he's joining.
Yeah, thank you for that. He did, in his memo to us, said that he did attend a meeting, and he met with Mr. Viveris and Mr. Hebert, and, believes he would be a good fit to the board. And I've known him from a different board that he was on in the city, and so he has a very familiar name to someone else in the city.
Yes.
So I'm sure he will be a good fit. So any other questions, comments, problems? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Motion passes. That concludes the business this evening for Personnel and Human Services. Call for an adjournment at 8:59. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Motion passes. We are adjourned at 8:59.
I'd like to call to order the Committee on City Property and Claims at 8:59. From the docket of February 21st, 2017, excuse me just for a moment, I do have quite a few motions. I have like 8 of them, so please bear with me. From the docket of February 21st, 2017, I entertain a motion in accordance with Section 1-12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro to approve the mayor's request to accept the donation of gift certificates to Stop and Shop from the following donors in the following equivalent amounts. The Attleboro Elks Lodge, number 1014 for $1,000, and the American Legion Post, number 20 of Attleboro for $300.
Second.
Any questions, concerns? Thank you. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes. I entertain a motion in accordance with Section 1-12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro to approve the mayor's request to accept the donation of 6 cases of paper from an anonymous donor to the Willett Elementary School and a donation of $1,727.79 from the Willett PTO to the kindergarten classrooms for 6 mini Apple iPads and accessories.
Second.
Okay. Any questions, concerns? Okay, again, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. I entertain a motion in accordance with Section 1-12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro to approve the mayor's request to accept the donation from Zoo Director Jean Benchamal of 1 bottle of Dronto Plus, a broad-spectrum anthelmintic parasite treatment, actually like a deworming is what it's used for, valued at $148.29.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions, concerns? Okay, and we thank Jean. That's a pretty nice gift that she's giving, and I'm thankful that she was willing to do that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
You need to say.
I entertain a motion in accordance with Section 1-12, the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro, to approve the mayor's request to accept the donation of a framed map of Attleboro from Valerie King of Old Post Road, North Attleboro.
Second.
Okay, again, I think it's pretty explanatory, but does anyone have any questions? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. I entertain a motion to approve the mayor's request to transfer $5,330.55 from account 1124100-578-300 Citywide Reserve Fund for transfer to account 1124100-524011 Citywide Maintenance of Buildings to replace a circular pump at the Shang Building.
Second.
Thank you. For those of you that might not remember, we did replace one already, and then as luck would have it, as we all know if you own your own home, the second one went. And so now we have to replace that. That money had not been allotted for that. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank
I
you.
hate when that happens.
I know, I
You
hate
wash it, you wash it goes, you replace it, the next thing you know, your
That's
dryer
right.
goes.
It goes in threes. I entertain a motion to approve the mayor's request to transfer $800 from account 1124100-578-300 Citywide Reserve Fund for transfer to account 1124100-558-330 Citywide Copiers to purchase a copy machine for the second floor of City Hall.
Second.
Okay, again, thank you. Just a reminder, the one did break down. We were using a refurbished one that was given to us, and then it came up for sale, so it's not a brand new, it's kind of a refurbished model, and that's why it's only $800. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That motion passes. I entertain a motion to approve the mayor's request to transfer $2,438.70 from account 1124100-578-300 Citywide Reserve Fund for transfer to account 1124100-530101 Citywide Professional Services to replace the thermostatic valve on boiler number 2 at City Hall.
Second.
Okay, all those, any questions? Concerns? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. I entertain a motion to approve the mayor's request to transfer $7,485 from account 1124100 0-578-300 citywide reserve fund for transfer to account 1124-1000-524011, citywide professional services to fix 2 windows at City Hall that are leaking.
Second.
Thank you. Any concerns, questions about the windows? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, that motion passes. And that is all I have this evening for the Committee on City Property and Claims, and I would like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, and we will adjourn at 9:05. We are adjourned. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We are adjourned.
Before Mr. Conti takes the podium, I guess we signed in wrong places, so I am repassing out our resolutions. Try to sign over your name. Okay, thank you. I probably messed it up.
I guess it doesn't matter.
All set, Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to call the Committee on Capital Improvements and City Development to order at 9:06. Sitting on the committee with me is Councilor Cooper and Councilor Reynolds. And Acting President, Councilor Denley. And I have 11 motions to bring before you tonight. Before I start, I want to say that I, like Councilor Jackson, met with Mr. Kennedy and addressed one concern that was expressed to me by Councilor Denley, that why are all these projects coming up at once? And we talked about that for a prolonged period of time. And I'd like to summarize our conversation in my own words, because I don't want to try to repeat what Mr. Kennedy said. But I'm of the opinion that if Mr. Kennedy wasn't in charge of both wastewater and water, he probably wouldn't be here. He would probably retire. That his motivation is driven by an agenda, that he likes to be busy, and he likes to see things get done, and he likes to see accomplishments. And I can relate to that. I have a tremendous amount of respect for the man, and I think we're lucky to have him. But this, I think, proves it, because what we have is we have a water enterprise fund that began the year at $1,498,118. And as of to date, we voted $25,327.64, so there's $1,200,000 left over. And Councilor Jackson just passed $90,000 coming out of the wastewater, so let's say it's $1,000,001. The matters that I'm going to bring before you tonight are, the 11 matters I'm going to bring before you tonight total about $500,000, $500,000, which will leave in the water reserve fund about $600,000. And we talked about what was the most expensive, disastrous water main issue that he has experienced in his career, or seen in his career, and it was the Route 152 under the bridge tragedy that required $182,000. That is unlikely to be repeated. It's true that anything can happen anywhere at any time. But having $600,000 in the water meter, the water retained earnings account for a relative 6-month period until the account gets replenished in the next fiscal year is a very safe practice. And if, of course, something tragic should happen that required a lot of money, that's what the stabilization fund is for. We don't have a capital improvement funding plan in the city, and you've heard me talk about, and Frank Cook talk about it for years. In the water department, the water retained earnings are for emergencies and for capital improvements. So what Administrator Kennedy is doing right now is he's saying, I've got a few years left on the job. There's all these things that have been left out that haven't been done, that should be done, and I'd like to leave the department in good stead for the next superintendent. So expect to see an increased water repair capital improvement program for the next few years, because I don't think he's going to let up. And I'm sure he's listening, or I'm sure he'll see this coming forward, and I encourage him to do so, because I think that the water retained earnings is there for a reason. It's there for emergencies, but it's there to maintain the system as well. And the 11 items that I'm bringing you tonight are quite surprising. They're very interesting. So we'll start with the first from the docket of February 21st, 2017. I entertain a motion to approve the mayor's request to appropriate $38,800 from account 6100-359000 Water Enterprise Fund retained earnings to fund 3326 Route 95 water main to remove and replace the water main under Route 95.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Cooper. So 8 years ago, when I first became a city councilor, I got calls from Norgate Road that their water was brown. And I called the superintendent and said, why is the water brown? And I was told, we don't know, we'll investigate. And in an email I received from Mr. Kennedy today, or yesterday, I read it today, so maybe I got it today, that in the northern part of the city, Commonwealth on the eastern side of Route 95 terminates at Interstate 95. And then there's the northbound lane, the median, and the southbound lane, and then Norgate Road terminates almost exactly across. And underneath that highway, going from Commonwealth to Norgate, is a concrete sleeve, 16 to 20 inches in diameter, that goes underneath the entire highway. And there's an iron pipe in there. And when Norgate Road complained 8 years ago of brown water, they did an investigation, and they found on the end of Commonwealth a strong odor of chlorine. And they noticed water running into the stream there. So they installed a valve on Norgate Road and shut the water off, then shut the water off on Commonwealth and left it for 8 years. It's just been sitting there. When John Walsh was working on a project for Bishop Fian on, I forget the name of that road by the baseball field, he found a water main that he could attach to the system that would replenish the water in that area because it was getting dangerously low for fire protection. So it was a patch to kind of take care of the water pressure area and the water supply area. Director Kennedy has said this is something that should not have been let go for 8 years, that this water main, broken main, should be repaired to give that neighborhood of Norgate and Commonwealth 100% of the water that they can use and 100% of water available to the firefighters, and it actually strengthens the entire northern section of our city with a higher supply of water because it connects the two together. So they're going to hire, and by the way, this has been in the capital improvement plan as a priority one for at least 3 years. So we're finally getting to it. And that's another issue that I address, and I will inform you as we go along that these items have or have not been in the capital improvement plan, and I'll tell you why they've been there and why they haven't. So it was in the capital improvement plan at $17,500. Yeah. And it's now $34,800. And this is for the design. It's It's not to replace the pipe. So what's needed is we need to get CDM in with inspectors, contracting through JF White, who are going to subcontract to Walsh Contracting, and put the money through the Mass DOT, because the Mass DOT is doing a project in median of Interstate 95.
Right.
And it is very convenient to do the water main repair time at the time that the Mass DOT is doing their work. So what we're doing is we're stepping in on a Mass DOT project to let them do the work, but we've got to pay for the design, of course, we've got to pay for the contracting as well. The cost to repair that pipe is going to be somewhere north of $175,000. And that's next year. And it might be as high as $240,000. And it's plastic. But it's one length of either 8-inch or 10-inch plastic pipe that's put in from Commonwealth, welded together as they slide it down the sleeve. First they remove the old pipe. And then it's one piece of pipe that goes from one end of Commonwealth to one end of Norgate with valves associated, and they expect that to last for a very, very long time. Are there any questions? Seeing none, I'll take a motion to approve. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? None. Passed unanimously. I entertain a motion to approve the raise request from the docket of January 21st, 2017. I entertain a motion to approve the mayor's request to appropriate $61,000 from account 6100-35900, Water Enterprise Fund retained earnings, to account 6100-5844074, Water Enterprise Fund High Lift VFD, to install a new variable frequency drive, which is what the VFD is, because of one of our 4 high-lift pumps that supplies water to the Oak Hill and Ides Hill water storage tanks is down.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Cooper. This is in the capital improvement plan. That, as we currently sit, one of the 4 high-lift pumps is down, and he's not comfortable with one pump being down. Mr. Kennedy says that there needs to be 4 to supply those 2 tanks, and these pump to the standpipe. So this is what fills up both Ides Hill and Oak Hill tanks. And there's, I think some councils were there with me when we did a tour of the Ides Hill tank. So that's just been refurbished and refinished, and perhaps the reason why one of those motors is down, because we drained it, we had to refill it. Are there any questions? Seeing none? Yes, Council.
Some more comment. Overall, I just want to thank you for taking a look into that. You know, I think that when we have 11 projects that come out, plus whatever was in Councilor Jackson's committee, I think it's prudent that we take a look and find out exactly what it is. I'm a firm believer that if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So the fact that he's being so proactive at this, he's checking some of the items that have been in the capital improvement program, I think that's outstanding. I also appreciate you taking a look at the balance in the retained earnings, because I think it's vital we have that line of sight. We have it with the reserve fund for transfer and other items, so I did just want to thank you for that, and the work that Mr. Kennedy's doing as well.
So your comment to me after the end of the last meeting that we should follow a tally in the retained earnings at the end of every vote, I love, and I am going to do that.
I appreciate it.
Because it just makes sense. That,
of course.
When we're working with large budgets like $1.4 million, and we know they're for emergency and capital improvements, why not keep it running balance as we go along? So at the end of the night, we're going to have about $500,000, but I'll give you a firm count when we get there.
Thank you.
So, any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Passed unanimously. From the docket of February 21st, 2017, I entertain a motion to approve the mayor's request to appropriate $135,000 from account 6100-359-000 Water Enterprise Fund retained earnings to fund 3327 Elmwood Ave Water Main and reline the Elmwood Avenue Water Main.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Cooper. You have a question, Councilor Cooper?
No, I'm just, hallelujah, because this is the same similar scenario to Norgate Road.
Exactly. It is exactly
The
right.
scenario I hear from several constituents on that road.
It's
from
been
time
in the
to time.
capital improvement plan as a priority one for several years, and we have not been able to fund it, and we've not been able to get to it. It's a cement lining where they're gonna first clean the pipe, then cement line the inside. It's 1,400 feet in length, and costs about $100 a running foot to cement line it. Right now, the way they're giving them questionably acceptable water to drink is by blowing off
At the end.
the water at the end, which is wasting a tremendous amount of water. That's all I have to say about that one.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other comments, questions? Okay, all in
Wait to tell
favor?
them.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed unanimously. From the docket of February 21st, 2017, I entertain a motion to approve the mayor's request to appropriate $170,000 from account 6100-35900 Water Enterprise Fund retained earnings to fund 332H HVAC Phase 2 to replace 2 chillers and manifold them between the HVAC and the ozone system, and to add a combustion air fan at the boiler room, which will circulate adequate combustion air to the room to ensure proper operation of the boiler, and to reconfigure the thermostats and heating water control valves.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Reynolds. You're messing me up.
In my little voice, I've been saying second every time.
So in the motion, this is for design, bidding, and resident engineering, which is a clue to why he's getting so much done at once. He is delegating the overview and oversight to outside firms who have experts in the field. In this case, both the HVAC and the ozone system in that plan operate under one system. And the motion is to replace 2 chillers and the manifold that connects them, to basically put in a whole new system. Right now, they can use one or the other. They can't use both. And you can't run a water plant where you can only apply ozone a portion of the time. You need ozone 24/7 when the plant's running, and you need HVAC to keep the plant operational. So right now they have to switch over, so they build up in the ozone. While they've got enough ozone, they run the HVAC. It doesn't matter what the temperature inside the plant is, when they need more ozone, they have to shut off the HVAC, go back to ozone production, and that's just not acceptable. And so this has been in the capital improvement plan. It's been in the capital improvement plan as a priority 1. And we're finally going to get to it. Any questions? We have a second on the motion. All in favor?
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. From docket February 21st, 2017, I entered in a motion to approve the mayor's request to appropriate $21,500 from account 6100-35900 Water Enterprise Fund retaining earnings to account 6100-584-076 Water Enterprise Fund high lift valve to purchase and install a 24-inch butterfly valve for high lift pumps.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Pittman. So a butterfly valve is a large device. It's very thin, and then it's like it has a wafer in the middle with a stem running through it from top to bottom. And when it opens, water flows very smoothly through it. But when you go to close it, there's channels around the rim that wafer is supposed to seal against. They never do, because as you open up the valve and you run water through it, sediment collects in the bottom of the valve. And so it's never going to really, after it's been in use for several years, it's never going to really close tight. But it closes tight enough to make it manageable. In this case, it needs to be replaced. The butterfly valve is not in the capital improvement plan, but it is, the valve has failed. It won't close. So they need to isolate the high lift pumps when they require maintenance, and they're not isolating them enough because of the valve. Are there any questions? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote on the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. From the docket of February 21st, 2017, I entertain a motion to approve the mayor's request to appropriate $22,000 from account 6100-3590000 Water Enterprise Fund retained earnings to account 6100-553181 Water Enterprise Fund treatment plant supplies to purchase 3 variable frequency drives for 3 raw water pumps.
Second.
Second, Councilor Reynolds. This is in the capital improvement plan. It's in the capital improvement plan as a priority 1. The 3 variable frequency drive for the 3 raw water pumps are necessary for a technician to install and feed, because right now the pumps are not variable frequency drives. So right now they turn them on, they pump. When the feed is sufficient, they shut them off. And this is at Luther Dam. So the 3 raw water pumps are pumping water right out of the reservoir, right into the system. As I said, it's been in the capital improvement plan. I'm sorry. Yes, it is in the capital improvement plan. It is the number 1. The cost of the drives is $22,000. We need to get a technician to install them. That's $4,200. So that's why we're asking for the funds. Any questions, comments? All in favor? Aye. Motion passes unanimously. From the docket of February 21st, 2017, I entertain a motion to approve the mayor's request to appropriate $4,200 from account 6100-35900 Water Enterprise Fund retained earnings to account 6100-530101 Water Enterprise Fund professional services for the technician to install the 3 variable feed drives. Second, Councilor Cooper, thank you. I just explained that this is for the motion that we just did. Any questions? All in favor? Aye. Motion passes unanimously. From the docket of February 21st, 2017, I entertain a motion to approve the mayor's request to appropriate $13,000 from account 6100-35900 Water Enterprise Fund retained earnings to account 6100-587054 Water Enterprise Fund boiler repair to purchase and install a new burner and modify the mounting plate for the boiler at the water treatment plant.
Second.
Second, Councilor Reynolds. Let's mix it up. We'll drive Ken nuts. So, the boiler, this is not in the capital improvements plan because it's a failure. The burner for the boiler has failed, and the new one doesn't mount on the same holes in the system as the old one because it's newer, more efficient, a different design. It's a better burner for the boiler. Better burner for the boiler. And this is identified as a critical need. Boiler. It's 6 degrees outside. So, do you have any questions? All in favor? Aye. Motion passes unanimously. From the docket of February 21st, 2017, I entertain a motion to approve the mayor's request to appropriate $24,000 from account 6100-35900 Water Enterprise Fund retained earnings to Fund 3329 Plant Elevation to inspect the condition of the water treatment plant's mixing, flocculation, and sedimentation basin structures and lower drive mechanisms in order to determine the integrity of tanks and the conditions of the collector mechanism. Second, Councilor Cooper. See, I bored Councilor Jackson to tears.
Yeah.
This is not in the capital improvement plan. It's the result of an inspection report. So the state came to Attleboro and did an inspection and issued a report that's quite critical of the existing conditions. And to remedy them requires $24,000 for us to get the plant up to the standards of the report from the state. This isn't a, would you like to? This is, you gotta. All right. Any questions? All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. From the docket of February 21st, 2017, I entertain a motion to approve the mayor's request to appropriate $30,000 from account 6100-359000, Water Enterprise Fund retained earnings to Fund 3322 Luther Dam, because it's been discovered by consultant engineers GZA that a dike located several hundred feet north of the dam, which was constructed in association with the creation of Luther Reservoir, must be restored in accordance with Massachusetts dam regulations.
Second.
Thank you.
Yikes.
That was a tie. I'm gonna give it to Reynolds. So, the state standards have evolved. I think you remember this from the dam inspections that we've done in other locations. Farmers Pond comes to mind, and a few other places where the state's saying, so this is not in the capital improvement plan. It is a state standard evolution cost mandate. Frank's not here to talk about that, but it's only $30,300. And what it is, before that berm, dike, earthen dike at Luther Dam, inside the water pool is a weir. And the weir is like an emergency holdback, so that if that earthen dike should fail suddenly, the weir would slow down the evacuation of the water coming out of the reservoir. Questions? Motion's in order, all in favor? Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Councilors, that concludes the business that I have to bring before you today. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you.
And
Good stuff.
it is good stuff. It's all good stuff. So the Water Enterprise Fund retained earnings are now down to approximately $500,000, and we'll get a final accounting from Deb Gould by the council meeting. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ray.
That's a wrap, everyone.
Thank you.
Yep.
Oh, I take a motion.
Second.
There you go.
All right.
The agenda 9:32. Yeah.
Thank you.
Fun to do.
Oh, yeah, you can put that in a box here.
Okay.
Yeah.